There should be law and regulation in place to ensure the proper usage and protection of the facial data.
They can be used for monitoring employees in workplaces, monitoring students, especially now that classes are remote.
It would be more secure to identification with our face than having like a password that can be lost or stolen.
This time we're talking about facial recognition and how we perceive facial recognition being used in the future. So what is your personal experience with facial recognition and how it has affected your life?
I usually use facial recognition to, for example, unlock my cell phone, to tag friends on Facebook, accessing apps, and make payments. Facial recognition offers a quick and automatic and seamless experience. Additionally, confirming the identity using this technology could be more secure because there is nothing such as ID or key that can be stolen or lost.
So one of the experience I wanted to share, which happened to me last week, is I actually forgot the password of one of the banking application. So rather than calling the bank to reset my password, luckily I set up the facial recognition before then. So I was able to log on the app using my face. And the customer service was, they did not need to contact me to validate it was me logging on the app, because apparently the accuracy using the facial recognition will be a lot higher compared to using the traditional authentication way.
We witness or hear about how it can affect people's lives. For example, people can get arrested by facial recognition matches. They are used in interviews, or they can be used for monitoring employees in workplaces and monitoring students, especially now that classes are remote, and they are being used for watching a student taking exams.
Let's take a scenario here where a store has cameras inside of it, is constantly recording video, and then one day they decide to do facial recognition on all their past video.
I think it would be okay as long as my identity is not revealed. Because I guess the use of this technology for customer tracking would, in the long term, will improve the shopping experience and the customer service.
Even before facial recognition was around, the security cameras were used to identify the suspects if something wrong happens.
I don't see it necessary to share my facial information with the store. I could still log on to my account using the traditional username, password authentication, and enter my credit card information to complete my transaction. There were also multi-layers authentication or validation procedures happening to make sure I'm actually the one authorizing the transaction. And in case there was a fraudulent transaction happened, I could always dispute it with the vendor or bank afterward to resolve it.
Would you shop at a store that stated or claimed that they use facial recognition for customer tracking?
I think it's like a trade-off. One side is definitely the benefit and also convenience using the technology, but the other side is definitely the potential risk. I will probably go through the statement, or maybe do some research before then to make sure I'm comfortable of their protection or controls in place before I choose to use their services.
Yes, I would shop at a store that use the facial recognition, but only if my identities remain anonymous.
I would also shop from those type of stores because I think it makes the shopping experience very convenient. And from the privacy aspect, I would say I think this transition to using facial recognition instead of credit cards is similar to transition from cash to credit card. For sure, it first caused privacy concerns, as credit card payments can be tracked, and this type of payment is no different than that, I think.
Who here has a cell phone? We pretty much all do, right? So when you sign up for a cell phone, you do a credit check, and that credit check carries with you and it sort of enforces what your plan is, for instance. Would it make more sense to have facial recognition make it more secure?
I think, in fact, it would be more secure to, for example, do identification with our face than having like a password that can be lost or stolen. Using facial ID is better, but it comes down to how the companies are handling the data and what they are doing with that data as well.
Introducing this technology without the proper guidance or control, it would definitely introduce a lot of like potential risks or even like an ethical like perspective there.
Yeah, I think using facial recognition could be more secure, but still the facial recognition algorithms are not 100% accurate yet.
Do we have any privacy concerns for applications using facial recognition from the government or private business? And if so, why?
In an ideal society where democracy or relative freedom exists, actually facial recognition can be beneficial. It can prevent crimes and bring safety and convenience. But unfortunately, it's not the case in many countries. So for government of those countries, facial recognition is just another tool to further control citizens. However, there are already other tools to constantly monitor citizens by governments, and it's not limited to facial recognitions. They already have huge databases they can use to punish people not only for crime or legitimate reasons, but for any deviation that they consider a threat for their power. For example, there's been a platform called WeChat in China, which was started as a chat platform, but now it can be used basically for their everyday tasks or actions, and state security is monitoring everything already. So the concern is not only related to facial recognition, but how citizens' data are being used.
It's not guaranteed that even the democratic government could potentially abuse the technology as well for some benefits. So, for example, the real happened in Washington, D.C. last week. So it's said that the government or agents such as FBI is definitely using the facial recognition technology to keep track of those like protesters. I would definitely have privacy concerns more for the technology being used by the private businesses. And in the end, it also depends on the purposes of the usage, whether or not there was sufficient governance making sure the proper usage and protection of the facial data, whether or not it has obtained consent from the users before they collect facial information from them.
One of my biggest concerns is the government entities using live facial recognition for mass surveillance. For example, Chinese government and also Russia have already implemented this technology for this purpose. The other concern is the proper data storage and sharing, because some companies, if they don't have like good security, Face ID credentials could be exposed to security threats.
So, if we consider that every recorded image and video can now be processed through facial recognition software, should there be laws governing this going forward?
I think it will be crucial to establish limits around all uses of the technology, and also the laws should address privacy risks, because this kind of technology diminishes our ability to remain anonymous in public.
As leakage of the facial data could potentially result in severe consequences such as identity theft. More and more devices and applications, such as cell phone and banking applications, are using facial recognition technology as authentication. By obtaining the facial data, hackers could potentially use other AI technology, such as deepfake, to pretend as you in order to get unauthorized access to your data or assets.
There should be regulations for how to use them. They should only be used as a clue in identifying a suspect, and should not lead directly to an arrest.